We're going to go into the corruption of judges by Democrats. Look at my face. The bruises are real and the stitches are real. I get the stitches out today, guys. Skin cancer healing is going well. Thank you so much for your prayers. I am sustained by your prayers. And I'm going to keep working 4 videos a day just for you. The most important news that happened this weekend and today. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Here's Josh Hawley.
No, I'm surprised the Supreme Court's letting this go on, Bill, and here's why. These little district court judges, these judges are essentially acting as if they're the Supreme Court. I call them little. It's because they've got a narrow jurisdiction, and yet each one of them, so many of them, all 17 you just pointed out, they want to act as if they're the Supreme Court. Really, they want to act as if they're the president. This is why I've introduced legislation, Bill, that would stop nationwide injunctions, ban it.
There ought to be a law about it. Well, they're going to try and pass a law. Where did all of it come from? This is going to be Chuck Schumer making an amazing confession, proves his guilt, that they packed the courts with Democrat judges and with the sole goal of trying to stop Trump.
Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges, progressive judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time.
So they only put them on the bench to rule against Trump. That's not justice. That's a cartoon. That's fake justice by Chuck Schumer. These are about the judges that are trying to stop illegals, create sanctuaries. They're protecting sanctuary cities as Trump tries to shut them down. A lower judge goes in and refutes him. I'm going to go into how the media is also in collusion with the Democrat Party and these corrupt judges. You're not going to believe this clip. This is Joe Biden talking about how sanctuary cities.
Would you allow these cities to ignore the federal law regarding the reporting of illegal immigrants and, in fact, provide sanctuary to these immigrants?
The reason the cities ignore the federal law is the fact that there is no funding at the federal level to provide for the kind of enforcement at the federal level you need. Pick up the New York Times today. There's a city not far across the river from my state that imposed a similar sanctions. And what they found out is, as a consequence of that, their city went in the dumps, in the dumpster. Stores started closing. Everything started to happen. And they changed the policy. Part of the problem is you have to have a federal government that can enforce laws. This administration has been fundamentally derelict in not funding any of the requirements that are needed even to enforce the existing law.
So, Senator Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
No sanctuary cities. And he even said, like, if you allow a sanctuary city, you essentially turn it into a dump. And what changed? The Democratic Party has become a completely different party of the white elite, rich, and Wall Street. Trump's successes, once again, are embarrassing the Democrats. Watch this.
Biden's have hired as a person who was a spokesperson for them at the Pentagon, a very high-powered PR person. Most presidents don't go on The View, 110 days or whatever it is after they leave office. And people are saying he wants to burnish his legacy, et cetera. And there's no doubt if you watch the interview that that's a motivator. But I talked to someone yesterday who knows the very understanding of the Biden family. And this person basically said, it's all hiding in plain sight. Yeah, they want to burnish their legacy. Yeah, Biden is addicted to the life he's had for decades where, it's all about being in the public stage. But it's also about that the Biden family, Hunter, not going to prison because he was pardoned, but Hunter's earning potential, at least currently, is nothing like it was when he was, a lawyer and a fixer and a Burisma board member or an art salesperson with his dad in the White House.
Selling art. I know something about selling art because I'm an artist who sells original paintings. Hunter Biden's art is worthless without the access to his father. That was always what his art was about. It wasn't about the visuals at all.
That his brothers, who made a lot of money for the family, also now don't have a president or a vice president or someone who might be president in office. And that all these grandkids who had very cool lives and lots of free stuff, that the gravy train has been cut off.
I think they have a ton of money. I don't think he's out going on The View trying to scrape up an extra 50,000. He can't get an interview. No one wants to interview him. I mean, no one wants to have him publicly speak, which, usually you get about $200,000 for a speech. No one wants to donate that to Biden because you imagine the car wreck horror of him speaking, how much damage that does to the Democrat brand. So no one's paying for that. So he's going on The View. Can't believe it's going for money because he has so much. He and his family, crime family, already have hundreds of millions of dollars. So I do think it might be an addiction to fame, an addiction to attention. He might be trying to scrub and make, kind of like Jimmy Carter did with Habitat for Humanity, remake his public persona so that he seems like someone more generous than he is. He's gonna have to do that through charitable efforts.
There's a great speech that Marco Rubio gave last night. I really encourage everybody to watch it. But at one point, he said one of the joys of his job is that he sees people who were interns for him, 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, and, they're much more successful. And he says a lot of them, in fact, most of them are making much more money than he is, and their clothes are much better than his are, and that there's a sort of real joy to that. And it really stood out to me because I was just thinking about that in contradistinction to just the bare bones basic millions of dollars that a Democrat retiring would consider to be the baseline that they would need in order just to exist. Like, when did that happen? That you needed to be making millions and millions of dollars in order to just retire from public life. There's just something really crazy about that to me. And you see it in a lot of these people, because a lot of them are making just millions and millions and millions of dollars. But that thing where, 65% of people now who make more than $500,000 a year are Democrats, and 75% of Silicon Valley donors donate to the Democrats. 95% of donations coming out of the top 3 management consultant firms go to Democrats. And just this sort of idea that the Democrats have become the moneyed party, the moneyed side of things.
Except it's a personal problem for the Bidens. And I've seen this with other people I've covered over the years. If you're a senator or a presidential candidate, you hang out with donors who live on Fifth Avenue. You hang out with other elected officials who are multimillionaires. You hang out with celebrities. And it's just like, well, I want those things too. I want to be able to have a house on Martha's Vineyard, or I want to be.
That's Joe Biden just taking the money. I'm going to show you how this has to do with the media. How did the media cover for Biden, cover for all his money grubbing when their party is the party of the rich? Here's Elon Musk. So I'm going to show you I'm going to end this thing on a John Fetterman clip that's shocking. First, here's the setup on the whitewashing and scrubbing ability, brainwashing ability of media to make you think a certain thing like, oh, let's vote for Biden in 2020. And Trump is mean and rich and selfish, and Marco Rubio selfish. Republicans are selfish when really it's the Democrats that are of the mega, mega rich party.
I think for many in the public, they don't quite realize just how much deception is really going on with the media. The biggest deception is the choice of narrative, because the media can say they can write a story about this or write a story about that, and only a few stories can go on the front page. So you're deciding essentially what people should pay attention to. So instead of it being what people actually care about, it's actually what a handful of editors care about. They're telling the people what to pay attention to. So that the deception by choice of narrative is a big thing. So that's why I really want the narratives to bubble up organically from the people in the case of the X system, which they do.
That's what organic, real people talking is a danger to that death grip on media. Here's an example of media putting a hit piece out on John Fetterman, basically saying he went crazy, is what the media is. Now, remember, John Fetterman, he's not pro-MAGA, but he's the most reasonable of the Democrat Party. And he came out against the center of the party, would not follow the rules, and now they're trying to distance themselves. This is according to Fetterman, making him look like he's insane and crazy. So they dropped a news cycle last week that he's dealing with depression and on pills. Watch this. Think of what the media is doing in trying to carve up and manipulate the people that could run for president and have a successful political career.
It looks like the far left is fed up with their one-time golden boy, John Fetterman. The liberal media is now coordinating attacks to take down the Pennsylvania Democrat. It all started with this piece from New York Magazine about Fetterman's mental health, saying, quote, staffers past and present say they no longer recognize the man they once knew. The senator pushed back on that story.
It was a hit piece, a one-source hit piece, and on some anonymous sources. So there's nothing new.
For me, it's like, it's like in the Goodfellas, everyone takes a beating sometime.
It was just a dumb hit piece, and we've all moved on.
But the New York Times ran with it and dropped this little nugget saying his volatile and concerning behavior has coincided with a period when his politics have become more conservative. Now the smear campaign is fully underway. The Associated Press claiming Fetterman melted down during a meeting with the teachers union, while an Axios piece quotes staffers saying the Pennsylvania Democrat seems uninterested in the day-to-day duties of a senator. And Fetterman's polling was already tanking before the hit pieces started coming. So expect it to only get worse.
And that's how the Democrat Party treats one of their own. I've said this before on DEI. Blacks, women, gays, you step out of line, they will destroy you. Well, there's John Fetterman stepped out of line. They're trying to destroy him, make him sound like a lunatic with unsourced, one person claimed hit piece that ran all through media and the Associated Press. They're trying to destroy John Fetterman's career or scare him into compliance. But John Fetterman, he is not going to break. Is this not the worst media of all time? What they do with their whole agenda, covering up for Biden, covering up for these corrupt judges, and in bed with all of them. The Democrat Party is completely corrupt. And that's the happy news that we're going to end on because we knew it before everyone else. I'm Doug in Exile.